It happened yesterday, and I got a notification about it earlier in the day, and I was like, oh no, this is a bad omen. The Mets apparently were practicing their World Series celebration in practice. Okay, I didn't read up on it until later, and I got the full story, and I actually love it. Yes, full story is very important. So what they were doing, like obviously anyone who played baseball when they were younger, you played 27 outs at some point in practice.
Yep.
Okay. And they got through 26. They were doing great. And one of the coaches went out there and was like, "Hey guys, like practice your World Series celebration. Let's get hyped up." And I love that. I love that energy there. And they got it. They finished it, and they celebrated. They stormed the field, whatever. Had a blast with it.
Everybody celebrate! I want to embrace it. Here we go. Don't be nervous. Go. Toss it, ready? Okay, toss.
After watching it, after reading about it more, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic for the culture. I saw the way they were celebrating with their team, and I'm like, I love what the Mets are doing right now. I think the Mets culture kind of started with their ownership was always kind of But I think with new ownership, with the guys we brought in, I love the energy, I love the culture there, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to do.
Anybody shitting on the Mets for this is just trying to be the no fun league again for the MLB.
100%.
Like, know your place, don't get out of line. This goes back to the NFL season. The Buffalo Bills, before the playoff game against the Colts, are dancing, and Josh Allen, the whole team looks super loose. Everybody looks super relaxed, and they're like, oh, they're going to get destroyed. They're too loose. And it's like, okay, well, they went to the AFC Championship game. So y'all were wrong, right? That's not a thing. The Mets are, in your mind and my mind, and I would hope our listeners' mind, the Mets are one of the top 5 teams in baseball. And they absolutely have every reason to think that with the right amount of health, luck, performance, growth of people, they have a shot at being in the World Series or at least being in the NLCS.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you have to start mentally embracing those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's going to be 150 plus games that you guys are going to play this regular season to get to the games that matter. If you're thinking this entire time that like, oh man, the slog of the season, guys, we have to have fun during this.
Yeah.
Everybody on the team's got to have a good time. You got to find ways to stay loose, to practice mentally being engaged on things that matter. And the fact that they're playing a game that kids play as their job, and they're doing a drill that every kid does to get better at that game, and they're having that much fun, bro, that's what baseball's supposed to be.
Exactly.
But anybody making fun of it, anybody saying anything is a loser. You're a loser. Right?
Yeah,
like,
there were the Twitter trolls for sure.
Always, because it's the Mets. Because it's like the Knicks. And everybody hates New York.
Yep.
Everybody hates New York because like the Yankees were great. Then the Giants have won a couple of things.
Yep.
Everybody thinks about the New York arrogance and everything else. And it's true because we're great and we're better than everybody else. But like then it's like our sports teams. There's so much pressure here that guys can't handle it. So people don't understand how much harder it is to win here. And it's like, oh, we're all playing the same game. We all have the same thing. Look at every guy who ever comes to the Mets. And they're like, oh, yeah, I was playing. Perfect example. Trevor May has discussed this on other shows and in other conversations. And he talked about, when I was with the Twins, he does his streaming. He does everything else. There's 5 people who show up to interview and talk about some stuff. And there's no PR opportunities, everything else. Comes to the Mets, he's already getting on TV shows and being hosted on this, running around, getting all this exposure. And it just changed locations.
Yep.
Like, the Twins were good. Right? They had a solid team. Moving to the Mets, completely different deal. And now that scrutiny is great, but the pressure as it starts to matter is so much more magnified here than everywhere else. Just get over it. Get over it.
And I think, too, with having that culture of, like, hey, like, let's have fun, let's enjoy playing the game, as you get into those moments that matter and you still have that base foundation of, hey, like, we love being on this team and playing for our city and stuff like that, I think it kind of helps take their mind off the pressure and just about doing what's necessary to win. And I think especially in New York, where you have the Yankees on the opposite end, which are all very serious. We have the culture of winning, all this stuff. And the Mets being able to go be like that different aspect, that fun team, I think they should just thrive on that and go out and make a statement.
Yeah, and I was listening, Chris Rose, friend of the Brands, host of the Chris Rose rotation. Chris was on WFAN yesterday or 2 days ago, and I was listening to him talk, and he was saying, when he's worked with MLB for a long time, and if it's not New York, Chicago, LA, nothing else matters to MLB in terms of national exposure. Mm-hmm. Everything's regionalized. You have your regional sports networks. You have all that stuff. That's where the money gets made. All the teams own their own stuff. So it creates these bubbles where it's hard to expose it. So you only get this national recognition. So I think also like a team like the Padres, who aren't going to get national exposure on a regular basis because of the way baseball's set up, mm-hmm. those fans get salty of Mets fans because they're like, well, our team's just as good, but we're not getting nearly the same. And you're right, mm-hmm. it's because you live in a market that sucks, because MLB sucks at exposing people to the game. And I hope this year it starts to change. We've seen it a little bit. Mm-hmm. MLB's letting guys do takeovers of the Instagram and do more fun stuff. I hope they lean into that.
Yeah.
But the people talking about the fun of the game, like, just move over, man. You obviously don't love baseball. You love the baseball that you want it to be, right? You don't want anybody else to make it theirs. Mm-hmm. You want it to always be yours. And that's what baseball still has.
Yep.
Just let everybody else enjoy it the way they want to.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.